Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by Earth Mama's Apothecary and littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. Today I want to talk to you about the golden child scapegoat dynamic in narcissistic families. This is something we often see in environments where there is a narcissistic parent of more than one child, so I wanted to talk to you about that today. Narcissistic people engage in something called splitting. This is the result of their inability to reconcile positive and negative aspects into one cohesive understanding of something. Splitting is, for example, why they see you as either all good or all bad, depending on their mood. They can only have one view of you at a time. Whereas non-narcissistic people are able to love someone but still understand that they have flaws, or love someone and still be angry at them, or understand that someone is a good person that just did a bad thing, narcissistic people cannot understand that. They cannot see that humans are complex and that even good people have flaws or bad qualities. This is not something they can justify in their minds. If something is good, then to a pathologically narcissistic person, it's all good. It is even idealized as perfect sometimes. If something is bad, it's all bad, and it's demonized as the worst thing that ever has been. This generally changes with their mood or with circumstances. They see people, objects, and even themselves this same way, so it's no surprise that they often impose this dynamic onto their children. Other people are mostly seen as mirrors of the narcissistic person. They are not experienced or understood as separate individuals with their own identity, personality, feelings, wants, needs, or problems. They are experienced and understood only so far as they relate to the narcissist, and children are no exception to this. This is what creates the golden child scapegoat dynamic. The golden child part of the dynamic is exactly what it sounds like. This is the, quote, good child. This child may be spoiled, indulged, fawned over, and given everything they want. The narcissistic parent often seems to have a bond with this child and a relationship that seems very close. In truth, the child is simply being used as a reflection of the positive image the narcissist wishes to portray to the world of themselves. The golden child might be the child who doesn't challenge or contradict the narcissistic parent or attempt to assert their own identity. This child is generally not seen as a threat to the narcissist for whatever reason and is rewarded for that. The scapegoated child is the, quote, bad child. This is the child who represents all things negative in the narcissist's life and of the narcissist themselves. This child may be devalued, ignored, blamed, neglected, gaslighted, or worse, as the narcissistic parent's attempts to control and subjugate this child fail. The child who does not obey, who challenges the parent, who asserts their independence and identity, who refuses to accept abuse, or who simply cannot measure up to impossible standards will often be scapegoated. The narcissistic parent often feels this child has somehow betrayed or rejected them and engages in a campaign of punishment that can go on for years. Indeed, it can go on for the child's entire life. It's very important to remember that this dynamic and each child's role in it often has nothing to do with reality. While it's true that sometimes the child's individual personality can have something to do with it, it's just as likely that the reasons are the narcissist's own and they may never be understood. And regardless of the reason, it's abusive and unfair. Not only does it compromise both of the children's self-esteem and self-worth, a dynamic often develops between them that's very difficult to change. Children who should be able to console each other and be each other's strength in this incredibly abusive situation instead have no one. Not even their siblings. The scapegoated child often becomes resentful and jealous of the golden child, and the golden child often treats the scapegoated child with the same disdain and abuse that the parent does. This creates a dynamic sometimes where everyone is now ganging up on the scapegoated child. We see that very, very commonly. The golden child scapegoat family dynamic is a situation where the children are robbed of camaraderie and fraternity. In essence, they are turned against each other. Children are not going to turn their anger and bitterness toward the parent, at least not until they're much older. The parent is the object that the children are competing for. The children's anger, bitterness, jealousy, or disdain is going to be turned toward each other. You don't get angry at the love object, you get angry at the person you're competing with. That's just how it works. It's just the nature of the beast. Narcissistic parents usually do nothing to diffuse or remedy this, and some even will encourage it and create the situation. They may play the children against each other or use one child to torment the other child. Even as adults, when they recognize what the parent has done and where the blame truly lies, people raised in this situation often just cannot get past it. Now, the golden child is often regarded as another villain in this situation, and this might not be a popular thing to say, but the golden child is just as much of a victim as the scapegoated child is in this situation, and as adults, they often have the same issues as their scapegoated siblings. Both children have had their identities pushed to the side in order to become vessels for the narcissistic parent's parasitic ego and tools for their self-aggrandizement. Indulgence and spoiling is just as much abuse as neglect. Spoiling a child is just as abusive as ignoring them. It's the same. Using a child to make yourself feel better is wrong, cruel, and abusive no matter how you do it. Whether you use praise and indulgence or blame and abuse doesn't matter. This behavior dehumanizes the child and relegates that child to the status of an object. Adults who were raised in this situation often have a lot of issues they need to address. They may be codependent, they may become narcissistic themselves, they may suffer from anxiety or depression, or both. They may have substance abuse problems, they might have anger problems, they often have issues with their self-worth and their self-esteem. They often become victims of narcissistic partners or friends because this is the dynamic that has been modeled for them and because they're still chasing that validation they didn't receive. The desire to prove themselves worthy and lovable is still very strong, and they have been taught that the only way they have value is if somebody else gives it to them. If you find yourself in this situation, please remember that all of this can be addressed. You are not stuck like that. You are not trapped. When we know better, we do better. You can learn to stop chasing chaos, to break the trauma bond, and to validate yourself so that you don't have to sacrifice yourself anymore. You really do have all the tools you need to fix this problem. You just have to learn how to use them. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. If you would like to schedule an appointment with me over the phone or online, you can visit littleshaman.org and click the bookings tab to go ahead and do that. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.